This is my adventure shirt, and the reason I'm wearing it is because Kristi Kendall and I are on a new adventure. We are investigating partnering in real estate investing. What is the asset class, you say? What are you doing? We're not sure. That's what's going to make this an adventure. It's going to be fun. We're going to take you through how we came to this idea and how we're thinking about it so that you can use those tools for yourself. Because if real estate is a little bit wacky where you are, you might be looking for alternatives within that space, just like we are. I hope you join us, Kristi Kendall and me, Erik Stenbakken, on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast as we talk about what's next for us.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pessimist podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. I'm one of your co-hosts, Kristi Kendall. I'm a developer investor, and I also teach locals how to become real estate developers in their own backyard. And I'm joined with my co-host, Erik Stenbakken.
Hey, y'all. And, it's time to let you know that I'm a secret agent. Actually, I'm a licensed broker associate. Like, nobody knows this. And I just think, I got to tell people that I do this. I do short-term rentals, long-term rentals. And today we are going to delve into new territory as a podcast. And so I wore my adventure shirt. This is what the kids today call retro. Some people might just call it an old shirt. But this has special meaning for me. I bought this back when I had my Volkswagen van, and a friend of mine had one similar to this. And this was our adventure shirt. My life was kind of like this, didn't have any children at the time. And I had a Volkswagen Westfalia camper van. I lived in Nebraska, and we would get in my van and we would tell our respective families, hey, we're going to head west, probably to Wyoming. If that gets boring, we'll go to Colorado. If that's not interesting, we'll go to Utah. I'll be back in a week. Probably fishing, maybe rock climbing, could be backpacking. We'll see. That's why I wore this shirt, because really, Kristi and I are headed into another adventure, and we're not sure what it's going to be. It's probably not. Yeah, it's probably not rock climbing and fishing, but I don't think either one of us would rule it out. We're talking about real estate investing, because if you haven't noticed, the real estate investing landscape has changed. It isn't 2021 anymore. It's not 2019 anymore. It's not even 2024. 2024 was kind of like, but at least we kind of knew what to count on, right? 2025, every time you turn on your computer, check the news, it's kind of like, wow, what happened? Blew up, changed, got overturned. And all of those things, plus just the fact that we're on our journey at a certain point, creates kind of a unique space. And so Kristi and I we're in discussions right now, discussing what's next for us. And we're talking about partnering up and doing some real estate together. And we thought that rather than try to tell you, oh, this is exactly the asset class we're getting into, and this is exactly how we're doing it, we might do some of that, but we're in the early stages. This is real time. Okay. We are headed west, so to speak, and we're trying to figure out where exactly we're going. And we thought this might be interesting to you as listeners as well, because if your real estate world is like our real estate world, and by the way, that covers almost east coast of the U.S. all the way to the farthest west of the U.S. coast, we've got a lot of bases that we cover between the two of us. It's wacky everywhere. So we're looking at new adventures, and we thought talking about how we're doing that. How are we thinking through this? What are we how are we trying to pick our path? Because you may be facing the same thing. You may have said, well, I did single family homes, but man, that paradigm shifted. I'm not sure what to do. Or, oh, I used to run syndications, but the weather changed there. So what's next? And so if you're seeking to find out what's next and you want to figure out how we are working to figure it out, this is the real time. It's going to be a little bit messy, a little bit less, I don't want to say rehearsed because we don't rehearse, but outlined. We want to take you through some of the things that we're doing. Now, Kristi she read me part of a message before we got rolling here. And I want you to share this because I think it gives context to where we are. So would you share some of that, Kristi? Because it was very telling as to one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I was just texting with someone yesterday about this general concept, and I had said, you want to have that initial business that creates the cash flow. And then you take the cash flow and you put the cash flow somewhere else to make it work. And you probably put it in 2 or 3 other places. So whether it's development, short-term rentals, long-term, whatever it is. And eventually you start to build up these to where they're spitting off their own cash flow. So that initial business that was your money generator doesn't need to take as much of your life. But then that puts you in a point where you start to become really picky on what you're willing and not willing to do. So, and then you also realize you go, okay, I'm too young to retire. And all of my friends, for the most part, are working these 9-to-5 jobs. So we can't just go play and take the boat out all day or play volleyball all day. So then I go, okay, well, I might as well do something. But then at the same time, I'm still not willing to do things unless they hit certain criteria. So now I want to do things with cool people that inspire us to where I want the energy of someone else who goes, yeah, let's do this too. And I don't care what we're doing as long as it's with people who are inspiring and we go out there. So that's kind of the conundrum that I'm in right now is like, it's the fun of the game. And I consider business a game. Like it's the fun of the game and it's the community around you. And that's why I've been so picky and saying no, but it's also just been like, okay, what's next? So when we were finishing our pod the other day and I was like, anytime I have a spark of like, hey, maybe this is it, then that's why we started talking.
Yeah. So we came to this not out of a sense of ennui, like we're just so bored, we can't think of anything else to do. And nor, as Kristi said, is it a desperation for like, I'll take any job. Like when I did landscaping, when I was in college, I had a little landscaping business. And if we rang somebody's doorbell and they said, yes, we need this done, we just said yes. Like, well, yeah, whatever. You betcha. You need that back porch taken out? You need the driveway pounded out with a sledgehammer? You need that tree cut down? Sure, you bet. We'll do it. We'll figure it out. We'll go buy a sledgehammer if that's what we need. I'll go borrow a chainsaw. But we're at a different place in our journey right now, and we don't have to take every deal that comes along. We don't need to just rush out and buy something that just helps us buy that second pack of top ramen because, we just, it's, so we're at this unique position. I don't think it's where we're just so wealthy we're going to kick up our feet and retire because we're just set for everything. Ironically, I don't think either one of us would want to do that even if we did have that kind of money in the bank. So we're trying to figure this out. So we're going to work through this with you. We're going to share with you kind of a little bit raw, a little bit bumpy, what we plan to do and why and how. So as Kristi kind of brought this up, it's like, hey, what about this? And I had to say, well, interesting you should mention that because we've had conversations here about that too. And not to get, I don't want you to get the wrong idea about short-term rentals. I'm still in short-term rentals. I still have them. I still think they're valuable. I still have the 1-hour course, which is, I've pushed pause on that right now, but I'm not out of short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. I'm also not sure that I'm going to jump right in and just buy another one. One of them is diversification. As I've got STRs and we've got them in 3 different states. And so we've got some diversification there, but they're all still in travel, hospitality, and they all take time. We'll get into that just a little bit. That's one of the reasons that I've said, you know what, I'm not sure I want to stay into this. Not sure that I want more of this because there's that weird threshold between when you're getting close to as much as you can do yourself, but then to break through and hire a team to do more things requires you to scale it up in order to pay for the overhead of scaling it up. It's a little bit of a hamster wheel there. So Kristi, what were some of the motivating factors for you to say, maybe it's time for a different adventure?
I mean, I've personally been tossing this around for a while now because it has been harder the past couple of years to get any development deal to pencil. So the pipeline is pretty thin at this point to where what we traditionally were doing is not happening. But then that put a spotlight and a focus on, okay, here's the other assets that we own and operate. And wow, some of these properties are super annoying. So it was from that it's like, okay, well, now I'm really feeling this mental load. So part of that is, what am I letting go of? And
Yep.
I like to use this time right now as a good reset. And like you said, we're not, we're not filthy rich, but at the same time, we're at a spot where we can be grateful for the hard work we did put in, to where we don't have to be forced to make decisions right now unless they make sense. So for me, it's getting rid of the problem childs. And I made a post about it recently, and it thrilled me to no end to be done with this property. We actually already did a podcast too on it, and it was, the top 5 things we would and wouldn't do again. And this is one of the properties where I said yes to it because I had the cash. I was on the way to the airport. It was already flipped, sight unseen. I had a contractor,
Sounded
a great
good.
team. Yeah, it sounded great. But it was like, no, it turned out to be a mental drain and a huge time suck. So very glad to have let that one go. Lots of lessons learned, but huge sense of relief from that. So I'm really kind of cleaning house right now across the board, to go and doing a deep dive personally, to go, where do I want to spend my time and my energy and my money going forward?
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out that people may hear that and think, oh, she just took a problem child and just put that onto somebody else. Now it's their problem. Here's the interesting thing about real estate and projects like this, is that as you take it on, if you've done your homework and looked at things and done your own penciling, for one person, where they are in their journey and for the purpose of that may be exactly what they're looking for.
And
The
you hit it.
STR,
The person who bought it, just to close out, the person who bought it is doing it as a house hack, which is going to solve half of the problems that are there, because the whole reason that it created so many issues is we weren't physically there and the neighborhood knew it. The fact that this person will be living in it, house hacking it, and then leveraging the team we already put in place, we passed it off. It's going to be a great asset and a great way for this person to go forward. It just wasn't right for us anymore.
That's right. And this is, we talk about this a lot, but I'm going to say it again, is just because it's not right for you doesn't mean it's not right for someone else. I mean, I'm a kind of, I guess you'd call it a flexitarian when it comes to diet, but you know what? Funny thing is, I don't like worms. Silly, crazy, I know. But you go fishing, you throw a worm in there and the fish seem to love it. You try something like cheesecake and the fish, I don't know, they're just not as interested in that. So what works for one doesn't work for the other. We sold our STR that we just had. It was the train wreck for us. We've got a podcast about that we did back in the day, how to lose $500,000 on a single door. Well, we sold that, and we sold it to someone we know. And the person that we sold it to knew of the issues that were involved in this. So we didn't sell it hiding anything. We sold it because we were out of mental energy to do it. Now, the numbers for them would be just as good as the numbers would have been for us, but we were done. And there is a time for that. We've had interviews with many guests, and things went off the rails. They got difficult. They got hard. Sometimes they kept that property, and sometimes they sold it. And it's not because it was a terrible property. It's because sometimes you're done. It's time to move on. And that's in some ways where Kristi and I are. We're like, okay, what's next? So we're going to talk about how we figured out what's next for us, because the hope behind this is that it will be something you can use. Because if real estate's wacky in your world and you're like, I don't know, what the heck? Well, maybe you can use some of the things that you hear us doing, and you can apply some of those to your journey.
Hey, can we talk business for a second? If you've been flipping houses or running short-term rentals, you already know how to hustle. You know how to spot opportunity, add value, and make a property work harder. But if we're being honest, flipping gets exhausting, and short-term rentals are definitely not passive. So what's next? For a lot of people I work with, the answer is real estate development. I'm talking about turning a vacant lot into a quadplex, or bringing a rundown building back to life as a mixed-use space. I'm Kristi Candle, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career, and now I host the Local Real Estate Developer podcast to help locals like you do the same. We pull back the curtain and show you what it takes to go from flipper or host to local developer. If you're ready to build something bigger, this podcast is for you. Check out the Local Real Estate Developer podcast on all platforms. Just as we're kind of diving into this, part of a question that people have all the time is, well, how do I find partners, or how do I do this or that, or how do I pick my asset class? Well, part of how this all came about is we chose to be partners on this podcast, 8 months ago at this point. And for me, one of the biggest factors, it doesn't like, I'm kind of always thinking further, and whether it's, oh, you'd be a great person to join my team, or you'd be a great person to partner with. Like I'm evaluating people like that from the beginning. And what I found in doing this partnership with Erik and doing the podcast is that we do what we say we're going to do. We do the roles that we signed up for. We show up at the times that we say, and there is no heavy load or burden. It's like we literally just do what we say we're going to do, and we have fun doing this. So to me, that's a huge thing. If I don't have to put someone on my back and carry them, and you'd be amazed how many people you have to carry through life. But if I don't have to do that, that's a huge win in my book. So I go, okay, this could be interesting. Maybe someday it could lead to something else, and who knows what.
Yeah. And I don't think either of us had that as like, this will be a test fit. It was like, let's try this. It's low threat. Let's do it. The market needs it. Sounds like it'll be fun. And I had seen Kristi interacting with a lot of other people in an online group that we were part of. I think, she's real. She's out there to help other people, but also getting things done, right? And so we had this test. I think it's Gary V has a saying, I can't work with you until I work with you, which, I first heard that. I'm like, how does that work? How are you going to do that? Well, guess what? This is one example of that. And another way is you do things with a low threat process. You just do something where the cost of failure would be very low, right? Mm-hmm. So if we got a podcast and it didn't work out, or it turned out for Kristi that I just never showed up, right? Then it's like, well, that didn't work out. Not a huge loss. But as it's turned out, we're months and months into this. We've got a lot of episodes that have been recorded. And guess what? I don't ever have to text Kristi like, hey, it's time to record. Where are you? And I'm not texting her saying, oh, sorry, I'm at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. I'll be there in 30 minutes. It's not happening. Mm-hmm. When it's time, we set up the time, we put it in our calendars, and then like magic or like adulting, we both show up when we're supposed to do it. And here we are. And so that's one of the key things. And there's also something to be said for the way a person works, a style of a person. It's not just the fact that somebody else has dollars or experience or fits the resume. It's, as Kristi mentioned, like, if you're going to work with this person, I'd rather work with somebody fun, right? Because there are people we can get to do the things, but it's more fun to work with somebody who you feel like, I could work with that person. And as you're building partnerships, we have an episode on partnerships also. But this is how we're doing it, how we're putting this together. One of the first steps that we're trying to do is thinking of what we do want, what we don't want, as a giant set of Venn diagrams, right? It's kind of all these things. So Kristi's got her set of things that she wants, and I've got my set of things I want, and I have my own Venn diagrams. Well, how much time am I willing to put in? And I've got a circle for that. That's only so much time, right? It's not 40 hours a week, and it's definitely not 50 or 60 hours a week. It's definitely not 24/7, 365. And so we talk about that and we say, well, that's one of my circles. And so Kristi she takes a turn. So we had a Zoom call. We talk about this stuff, and she's like, well, okay, here's what mine looks like. Like, all right, good match so far. So now instead of her having one and me having a totally different one, we can kind of say, all right, that's just one circle of our Venn diagram, and we're both in it. Like the edges might be a little fuzzy at certain times, but pretty much we got the same thing going on here. Then we get down to, what do we want out of this? It's surprising, right? It's because people may say, well, you got into a partnership, you're doing a new venture because you just want to buy the house. No, really? Really? You want to buy the house just because you want to have a house? Do you want the freedom? Do you want the cash flow? Do you want the tax savings? Do you want the equity? Do you want the cachet to be able to strut around and say, I own this many doorknobs? Whatever it is, right? So you've got to be clear, and Kristi and I have had these conversations, and we'll have more about what do you actually want out of this? Because
I think it's important to know that we had the idea. We said, oh, this could be a cool new venture that we go into. And then it was, okay, what's the next step? The next step is getting on the same page, having that meeting and outlining, what do we want out of this? What are our non-negotiables? Like, I definitely don't want it to turn into this. I do want this to be an outcome. Like, here's somewhere in the middle. And so just talking through and being honest with yourself, but also with your partner to go, okay, here's what could or couldn't work. And we didn't know going into
Great.
the first meeting. It was, hey, we could come out of this and go, nah, it's not a fit. Let's just keep
Right.
doing separate things. But it's just being
Conversation.
open and being conversational, having those things that are out there. And then as the conversation went, you could see how it turned. And at first it was like, okay, I'm kind of excited about this. And the more we dialed in the type of path we would get on,
Right.
then the more clarity we had and the more our energy also picked up within that. So those are signs that you can look at to go, okay, let's keep exploring this path.
Right. So the way we did some of that is we looked at this asset class, this path, this market space, and we said, what are our concerns about this? And so we're brainstorming. We're saying, well, I don't know. This is a concern. One of the things that we're doing in this, and this is Kristi's strong suit, is using AI to help us unpack some of these things. And I'm getting better at it, and it's largely thanks to Kristi and YouTube. Learning how to do this stuff and leveraging this and saying, okay, what are our concerns about this? Because enthusiasm alone doesn't work. Like, you can't just will an asset class into existence and into profitability, right? If that were the case, real estate would look very different than it does right now. There were a lot of people who got very lucky in 2020, 2021, and into 22. Guess what? The tide was going up for everyone. You could be a moron, and as long as you could close a deal, you made money. And so some of the benefits that we had were simply the marketplace. And I benefited from that. Absolutely. There were some things that happened in my market spaces that were like, wow, that's great. It's easy to think, oh, I'm such a genius. When the truth is, like, that was just the market cycle. And I just got lucky right there. Right.
You got lucky because you took action at a time that happened right before the Black Swan events. And then they went, phew. And so I'll take the luck all day long as well.
But we had to take action. And Kristi took action and I took action. We saw a thing was moving. We're like, cool, I'll get on that. And so that's kind of what happened here, is we said, oh, that might be going somewhere. Let's take a look at that. But we couldn't just get enthusiastic about it and say, oh, that sounds great. Oh, I'm so excited. Let's do it. It's like, all right, let's get realistic about this. Because look, the low-hanging fruit is the first gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the American West here, and Colorado was largely settled from mining, right? Well, the gold nuggets that were just sitting on the dirt, they got picked up first and they were gone. And then you know what it looked like? It looked like work. And so the gold rush in pretty much all these areas in real estate is over, right? At least as far as we know, as far as we understand. But we're saying, okay, we got to be realistic about what some of the dangers are. I am co-host of this podcast because education is my calling. That's also why I developed a course on short-term rentals. It's called STR in an Hour, and it's perfect for busy professionals. It's a lot of content packed into 1 hour. No fluff, no upsell. It's an overview of STRs from A to Z. Everything from how to choose a property to how to estimate income and expenses. It's literally the best and most content I could pack into 59 minutes. With over 4,000 nightly stays in my own STRs, I've learned important lessons, and I want to share them with you. Link with more information in the show notes. But then we've got to flip that around and say, okay, but what are our strengths? And how do we use the strengths and experience that we have as our superpowers? Why don't we talk about how that part of the conversation went?
Yeah, it started by going, okay, what are the areas of our life that we've run businesses in that we've excelled at? And so for me, clearly, I've been in real estate development for almost 20 years. So I like the complexity of deals that have a little bit more hair on them, that get past that add some friction to stop most people from getting in the game. So it's okay. Well, if I like the complexity of that, I like figuring out the puzzle, then you have your strengths where you're also excellent at marketing and excellent at sales, and you're a secret agent. And so you have all of these other strengths to where it's like, yeah, I could do what you do. I don't want to do what you do.
That's important, folks. That is so important, is to find people who like to do the things you don't like to do. Because fish, they eat worms all day. Like, awesome. Like, no thanks. Right. I remember it. I was doing a video production and I talked to somebody, and she was an accountant, and she said, oh, you know what I would just love? I would love to have a huge stack of numbers and be left alone all day long. And I thought, that's my idea of hell. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But for her, that's what she wanted to do. And so guess what? If you want an accountant, you find the person who just loves to do that. And you say, guess what? You get to do this all day. And then they'll be like, oh, that's so exciting. So what Kristi and I are doing is like, where's your strength? Okay, what's my strength? Okay, where does this overlap in the Venn diagram with what the market offers? Because we can say, oh, I've got a PhD in basket weaving, but you should see what I could do. Well, guess what? The marketplace doesn't reward that. And so what I want to do and what I have doesn't matter. So what we have to do is Kristi and I have to look at like, what are our skill sets and how does that apply in the marketplace? How can
Mm-hmm.
we use that to create a competitive advantage? And this is where Kristi going out and doing it just by herself or me going out and doing it by myself is multiplied. So it's not the same as 1 + 1 is 2. It's kind of 1 + 1 via synergy turns out to be more than 2.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out how that goes, but that's one of the
Yeah.
things. So one of the other things that we looked at is what are the concerns we have about this asset class and market space, very specifically. We started getting kind of granular about this and looking at it. It's like, okay, how do we tackle that? How do we solve that? How do we solve that? And then that turned into homework. Okay, what are we going to do? Kristi, want to share some of the things that we are doing as we're investigating this instead of just talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, we walked away. I'm a big fan of you leave a meeting and you say, okay, we just talked about this, but let's say here's literally what I'm going to do next, and then do it and hold ourselves accountable to it. So for me, it was dialing in what is our exact buy box. So if we've now taken the strategy to where it's not the lowest hanging fruit, it has friction, so it'll keep most people out. How do we then dial in and say, okay, here's the exact market that I want to do and be in, and here's how we can have a very clear, concise thing that we then talk to the land brokers and say, boom, this is me, this is what we're doing.
That's right.
Let's go from there. So yeah, leveraged my AI between Perplexity and Chat, and basically put in and said, and I did. So one thing I would say, guys, record your meetings, and whether you use Fathom, whether you use different whatever notes and things. But I dumped that in as well as some context to say, okay, here's everything you know about Kristi. Here's what we know about Erik. Put together this partnership, and I put together a couple different things. There was a buy box, but then there was also where Erik's a big fan, and I love this, is let's, show us where this can go sideways, show us where this can go wrong, because we want to point out any blind spots so we can have mitigation plans going forward. So honestly, for me, once I dumped him in and it started tossing him back and forth, I'm like, no brainer, no brainer, no brainer. Now, and I also caveat it, I am a quick start. Now, at the same time, I've been looking to focus in on this asset class for a while now. But every partner that I've tried to start this with has not taken action. And I'm not about to put another backpack on and carry someone else with me. So I just haven't done it. I've had enough going on in other worlds that I haven't done it. So I basically, I get all the information and I send it to Erik, and I'm like, okay, here's this. And I also know that I move, because I've been thinking about this for 5 years, I am willing to move quickly. And it might look crazy, like, oh my gosh, you're just jumping in right away and you're not thinking about it. Well, no, I've been thinking about it for 5 years. Now there's synergy and alignment, so we can go forward. What I've also learned, because I'm a quick start, is that I need to give people other time to process. So I've gotten much better at, here's this, you tell me when it's time to reconvene, and you tell me when it's time to go forward, but process this and we'll go from there. So from your side, Erik, when you get this, what were you doing on your end, and how did your processing work?
Well, one of the first things that happened after we finished our meeting is that Kristi sent me several AI summaries of what we've been talking about and about some of the quick research, because AI can do this. It can't do everything for us. Okay. I have my concerns, and I'm willing to limit my advantages in order for some of my privacy in some areas. Right. But for some generalized research, one of the reports that Kristi sent to me, for example, maybe it was 5 or 6 pages long, summarizing a lot of these things, it referenced 96 different sources, and it told me what those references are. How long would it take me to sit down at my computer and go find those 96 resources, scan through them, come up with the highlights, and put that into a summarized outline? Okay. So as a leverage tool, it's a huge thing. So for me, one of the first things I did then is I read that and I take a look at that. And Kristi mentioned something that's worth repeating, is that we looked at the problems, the potential problems and the pitfalls here, and we said, now how do we mitigate? This doesn't mean we don't go. We did an episode on the difference between fear and prudence. Fear just says, close your eyes, don't go, don't go, don't go. Prudence says, watch where you step as you go. Right? So that's what we're doing. We're not just closing our eyes and leaping, and we're not closing our eyes and just doing nothing. Okay. So we are taking steps, and we're trying to unpack this a little bit at a time, and we're doing homework. Yeah. So I got a book on the subject, and I'm listening to podcasts on the subject. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing both of those is that the best known book on this space is about 7 years old, maybe 6. Okay. And when you think about book publishing, it takes a while to write the book before it gets published. That is kind of like doing your research about computers, saying, oh, yeah, this guy, Thomas Edison, invented this cool thing. We got to take a look at this, because real estate has changed so much in the last 7 years. So much has changed that I can understand the basics from the book. Like, I see this is what I'm aiming for. But then I need current market stats. What's happening right now with people who are in the field? And that's where podcasts and that type of thing can give you like up to the minute, this is what's happening kind of news. So I'm doing that. I'm doing my research on this because I want to know, hey, before I do this jump, I want to do some homework. So I'm doing homework, and that's boring, right? It's boring to do that kind of stuff, but that is the learning process that we do. Now,
well, if you want a solid foundation, that's what you do first. You put more of the heavy lifting and the work in up front. And this is wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. We've both been in multiple partnerships, multiple businesses, and we know we would much rather take the time to do a solid foundation now before just diving in and needing to unwind something messy later.
Right. And so for that, part of this is going to come up with a tight buy box. And that will help us shake out a lot of other things. So I was talking to somebody the other day about real estate, and they said, well, I mean, what do you look at? And I said, my numbers, as far as like how often do you buy something compared to how often you see something, right? And I said, my numbers are probably realistically less than 1 in 1,000. And that's once I've come up with generally kind of, this is what I want to do. I'm not looking in Montana right now, just to let you know. I'm not looking in Canada, not looking at California. I'm not looking at a lot of places. And so in the areas, in the markets I've already chosen, in the asset class I have already chosen, with the boundaries I have already chosen, it's probably lower than 1 in 1,000. But by having a tight buy box, I can just say, nope. Yeah, I get the emails that come to me, and I can just simply say, wrong address. That's too far down the road. Don't want it. Don't even have to look at it. So Kristi and I are going to come up with what our buy box is. We're going to outline what that due diligence process is. Once something says, oh, that looks interesting. What about that one? Where we'll have a series of steps that we go through. One of the first things, I was on a call recently related to this. And one of the first things I did is I think, I'm going to look up that town. I'm going to look up their zoning, and I'm going to look up their restrictions having to do with this. So right there, is it a yes? May take to the next step, or is it a no? And my will and my energy of how much I want this to work is irrelevant. Okay, if the city, municipality, HOA, whatever says it's a no-go, man, then I just say, cool, saving my time, on to the next thing. So that's one of the things that we're working out. It's like, all right, but because I've got experience, she's got experience, we kind of reflexively, we don't even have a system yet. Okay. But we reflexively do this, and we know it's like, okay, cool. We're going to just jump in and do the things we know to do, and then we'll get together.
Well, some of the things we don't have a system yet, but this coming from a extreme OCD operations based person over here, the system is built. The system is fine. It's just going to need some tweaking, and he'll be integrated into it. But No, there will be, because I've personally always worked on rollout programs my entire career of how do we do things at scale, and I love that, and I love being able to set that up to go boom, 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 boom. Here's how we execute. Here's how we're efficient. Because if you're constantly reinventing the wheel and trying to figure something out, that's not fun. That's not enjoyable. To
right.
where once it's systematized and automated, and it's like, okay, we're a well-oiled machine. Like, let's go. This is fun now.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that it just occurred to me as you said, our systems and our buy box, is that as you're considering what you're doing, what's next with you, whether it's a partnership or not, there are so many questions to ask yourself. Okay, think about this. We could go into retail and we could sell something retail. Okay, well, guess what? Walmart needs a totally different system to make a profit selling chapstick at, $1.75 a stick or whatever it is. If we're selling high-end ski boats, well, you don't have to have that same kind of system. Now, you need a system, but it's a different kind of system because the volume is completely different. And so that's part of what Kristi and I are working on when we're looking at our buy box. Are we looking at stuff that has 3 zeros or has, 6 zeros? What are we looking at here? And that helps us determine what our systems need to be, and so on. It just keeps clarifying as we keep asking the questions. We'll say, well, no to that. Okay, I don't know about that yet. Yes to this, and we're moving down. So we're going to share with you as we do this a little bit at a time about what's next. As we unfold, yeah, you'll get more details later. But because we're not telling you this because it's some kind of top secret thing, it's because we don't know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not 100% sure what the answers to all these things are. We're sharing with you what the questions are we're asking each other, what we're asking ourselves. And in this process, which is very real time, we're going to figure this out and put it together, and we'll share it with you. And we'll say, well, this is what we're up to. This is what's going on. And you can shout from the sidelines, kind of like one of those horror movies, like, don't go in there, or whatever's going to go on. But we're going to unpack this for you real time, and you can join us on this journey. And you can count on us to be real, to tell you the truth. And that's part of the adventure that we want to invite you into.
That's right. That's right. That's part of the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate and partnerships and all of this. We just wanted to say, hey, there's a new venture. Here's the thought process behind it. And we'll enlighten you next time on what exactly it is that we're looking to get into. But like everything we've talked about on other pods, we want to do cool projects that make a difference, that move the needle in a positive way in communities with people that we want to work with, that we enjoy being around, that we want to, 1 + 1 does not equal, in this case, it doesn't equal 2. It's an exponential outcome that can happen. And so we're being very methodical about making sure that the foundation is solid and that we're all set up and we're ready to go. And then if everything aligns, then we're going to push go and go. Wanted to bring you guys in early, and we'll see what happens.
All right, let's take this adventure on the road. And we should definitely say this time, this isn't advice to you. It's not financial advice. It's not investing advice. It's not tax or legal advice, because we're putting this ship together as we're sailing it. And if that kind of adventure sounds interesting to you, please stay tuned, because we will be taking you with us on the journey. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. You can find us on YouTube if you want to see what we look like. You can just listen to us on most of the major podcast platforms. If you give us a review, just take 30 seconds and hit that 5 stars. And if not, just send me an email and tell me why it's less. Then we share it with a friend, because that's what helps this move forward. We hope this has provided value for you. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast.